التراويح أثابكم الله. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. ألف لام ميم صاد. كتاب أنزل إليك فلا يكن في صدرك حرج منه لتنذر به وذكرى للمؤمنين. اتبعوا ما أنزل إليكم من ربكم ولا تتبعوا من دونه أولياء قليلا ما تذكرون. وكم من قرية أهلكناها فجاءها بأسنا بياتا أو هم قائلون. فما كان دعواهم إذ جاءهم بأسنا إلا أن قالوا إنا كنا ظالمين. فلنسألن الذين أرسل إليهم ولنسألن المرسلين. فلنقصن عليهم بعلم وما كنا غائبين. والوزن يومئذ الحق. فمن ثقلت موازينه فأولئك هم المفلحون. ومن خفت موازينه فأولئك الذين خسروا أنفسهم بما كانوا بآياتنا يظلمون. ولقد مكناكم في الأرض وجعلنا لكم فيها معايش قليلا ما تشكرون. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. ولقد خلقناكم ثم صورناكم ثم قلنا للملائكة اسجدوا لآدم فسجدوا إلا إبليس لم يكن من الساجدين. قال ما منعك ألا تسجد إذ أمرتك؟ قال أنا خير منه خلقتني من نار وخلقته من طين قال فاهبط منها فما يكون لك أن تتكبر فيها فاخرج إنك من الصاغرين قال أنظرني إلى يوم يبعثون قال إنك من المنظرين قال فبما أغويتني لأقعدن لهم صراطك المستقيم ثم لآتينهم من بين أيديهم ومن خلفهم وعن أيمانهم وعن شمائلهم ولا تجد أكثرهم شاكرين قال اخرج منها مذموما مدحورا لمن تبعك منهم لأملأن جهنم منكم أجمعين. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. ويا آدم اسكن أنت وزوجك الجنة فكلا من حيث شئتما ولا تقربا هذه الشجرة فتكونا من الظالمين فوسوس لهما الشيطان ليبدي لهما ما وري عنهما من سوآتهما وطفقا يخصفان عليهما من ورق الجنة وناداهما ربهما ألم أنهكما عن تلكما الشجرة وأقل لكما إن الشيطان لكما عدو مبين. ويا آدم اسكن أنت وزوجك الجنة فكلا من حيث شئتما ولا تقربا هذه الشجرة فتكونا من الظالمين فوسوس لهما الشيطان ليبدي لهما ما وري عنهما من سوآتهما وطفقا يخصفان عليهما من ورق الجنة وقاسمهما إني لكما لمن الناصحين فدلاهما بغرور فلما ذاقا الشجرة بدت لهما سوآتهما وطفقا يخصفان عليهما فلما ذاقا الشجرة بدت لهما سوآتهما وطفقا يخصفان عليهما من ورق الجنة وناداهما ربهما ألم أنهكما عن تلكما الشجرة وأقل لكما إن الشيطان لكما عدو مبين. قالا ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. قال اهبطوا بعضكم لبعض عدو ولكم في الأرض مستقر ومتاع إلى حين. قال فيها تحيون وفيها تموتون ومنها تخرجون. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. يا بني آدم قد أنزلنا عليكم لباسا يواري سوآتكم وريشا ولباس التقوى ذلك خير. ذلك من آيات الله لعلهم يذكرون. يا بني آدم لا يفتننكم الشيطان كما أخرج أبويكم من الجنة ينزع عنهما لباسهما ليريهما سوآتهما إنه يراكم هو وقبيله من حيث لا ترونهم إنا جعلنا الشياطين أولياء للذين لا يؤمنون. وإذا فعلوا فاحشة قالوا وجدنا عليها آباءنا والله أمرنا بها. قل إن الله لا يأمر بالفحشاء أتقولون على الله ما لا تعلمون. قل أمر ربي بالقسط وأقيموا وجوهكم عند كل مسجد وادعوه مخلصين له الدين كما بدأكم تعودون. فريقا هدى وفريقا حق عليهم الضلالة إنهم اتخذوا الشياطين أولياء من دون الله ويحسبون أنهم مهتدون. يا بني آدم خذوا زينتكم عند كل مسجد وكلوا واشربوا ولا تسرفوا إنه لا يحب المسرفين. قل من حرم زينة الله التي أخرج لعباده والطيبات من الرزق قل هي للذين آمنوا في الحياة الدنيا خالصة يوم القيامة كذلك نفصل الآيات لقوم يعلمون. قل إنما حرم ربي الفواحش ما ظهر منها وما بطن والإثم والبغي بغير الحق وأن تشركوا بالله ما لم ينزل به سلطانا وأن تقولوا على الله ما لا تعلمون. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. وإلى عاد أخاهم هودا قال يا قوم اعبدوا الله ما لكم من إله غيره أفلا تتقون. قال الملأ الذين كفروا من قومه إنا لنراك في سفاهة وإنا لنظنك من الكاذبين. قال يا قوم ليس بي سفاهة ولكني رسول من رب العالمين. أبلغكم رسالات ربي وأنا لكم ناصح أمين. أوعجبتم أن جاءكم ذكر من ربكم على رجل منكم لينذركم واذكروا إذ جعلكم خلفاء من بعد قوم نوح وزادكم في الخلق بسطة فاذكروا آلاء الله لعلكم تفلحون. قالوا أجئتنا لنعبد الله وحده ونذر ما كان يعبد آباؤنا فأتنا بما تعدنا إن كنت من الصادقين. قال قد وقع عليكم من ربكم رجس وغضب أتجادلونني في أسماء سميتموها أنتم وآباؤكم ما نزل الله بها من سلطان فانتظروا إني معكم من المنتظرين. فأنجيناه والذين معه برحمة منا وقطعنا دابر الذين كذبوا بآياتنا وما كانوا مؤمنين. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. وما أرسلنا في قرية من نبي إلا أخذنا أهلها بالبأساء والضراء لعلهم يضرعون. ثم بدلنا مكان السيئة الحسنة حتى عفوا وقالوا قد مس آباءنا الضراء والسراء فأخذناهم بغتة وهم لا يشعرون. ولو أن أهل القرى آمنوا واتقوا لفتحنا عليهم بركات من السماء والأرض ولكن كذبوا فأخذناهم بما كانوا يكسبون. أفأمن أهل القرى أن يأتيهم بأسنا بياتا وهم نائمون أوأمن أهل القرى أن يأتيهم بأسنا ضحى وهم يلعبون. أفأمنوا مكر الله فلا يأمن مكر الله إلا القوم الخاسرون. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. قال الملأ من قوم فرعون إن هذا لساحر عليم يريد أن يخرجكم من أرضكم فماذا تأمرون. قالوا أرجه وأخاه وأرسل في المدائن حاشرين يأتوك بكل ساحر عليم. وجاء السحرة فرعون قالوا إن لنا لأجرا إن كنا نحن الغالبين قال نعم وإنكم لمن المقربين قالوا يا موسى إما أن تلقي وإما أن نكون نحن الملقين قال ألقوا فلما ألقوا سحروا أعين الناس واسترهبوهم وجاءوا بسحر عظيم وأوحينا إلى موسى أن ألق عصاك فإذا هي تلقف ما يأفكون فوقع الحق وبطل ما كانوا يعملون فغلبوا هنالك وانقلبوا صاغرين وألقي السحرة ساجدين قالوا آمنا برب العالمين رب موسى وهارون قال فرعون آمنتم به قبل أن آذن لكم إن هذا لمكر مكرتموه في المدينة لتخرجوا منها أهلها فسوف تعلمون لأقطعن أيديكم وأرجلكم من خلاف ثم لأصلبنكم أجمعين قالوا إنا إلى ربنا منقلبون وما تنقم منا إلا أن آمنا بآيات ربنا لما جاءتنا ربنا أفرغ علينا صبرا وتوفنا مسلمين. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. وواعدنا موسى 30 ليلة وأتممناها ب10 فتم ميقات ربه 40 ليلة. وقال موسى لأخيه هارون اخلفني في قومي وأصلح ولا تتبع سبيل المفسدين. ولما جاء موسى لميقاتنا وكلمه ربه قال رب أرني أنظر إليك قال لن تراني ولكن انظر إلى الجبل فإن استقر مكانه فسوف تراني فلما تجلى ربه للجبل جعله دكا وخر موسى صعقا فلما أفاق قال سبحانك تبت إليك وأنا أول المؤمنين. قال يا موسى إني اصطفيتك على الناس برسالاتي وبكلامي فخذ ما آتيتك وكن من الشاكرين. وكتبنا له في الألواح من كل شيء موعظة وتفصيلا لكل شيء فخذها بقوة وأمر قومك يأخذوا بأحسنها سأريكم دار الفاسقين. سأصرف عن آياتي الذين يتكبرون في الأرض بغير الحق وإن يروا كل آية لا يؤمنوا بها وإن يروا سبيل الرشد لا يتخذوه سبيلا وإن يروا سبيل الغي يتخذوه سبيلا ذلك بأنهم كذبوا بآياتنا وكانوا عنها غافلين والذين كذبوا بآياتنا ولقاء الآخرة حبطت أعمالهم هل يجزون إلا ما كانوا يعملون. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Raka'atul Witr, may Allah reward you. Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Manir Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. وإذ أخذ ربك من بني آدم من ظهورهم ذريتهم وأشهدهم على أنفسهم ألست بربكم قالوا بلى شهدنا أن تقولوا يوم القيامة إنا كنا عن هذا غافلين أو تقولوا إنما أشرك آباؤنا من قبل وكنا ذرية من بعدهم أفتهلكنا بما فعل المبطلون وكذلك نفصل الآيات ولعلهم يرجعون. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. ولقد ذرأنا لجهنم كثيرا من الجن والإنس لهم قلوب لا يفقهون بها ولهم أعين لا يبصرون بها ولهم آذان لا يسمعون بها أولئك كالأنعام بل هم أضل أولئك هم الغافلون. ولله الأسماء الحسنى فادعوه بها وذروا الذين يلحدون في أسمائه سيجزون ما كانوا يعملون. وممن خلقنا أمة يهدون بالحق وبه يعدلون. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. يسألونك عن الساعة أيان مرساها قل إنما علمها عند ربي لا يجليها لوقتها إلا هو ثقلت في السماوات والأرض لا تأتيكم إلا بغتة يسألونك كأنك حفي عنها قل إنما علمها عند الله ولكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون. قل لا أملك لنفسي نفعا ولا ضرا إلا ما شاء الله ولو كنت أعلم الغيب لاستكثرت من الخير وما مسني السوء إن أنا إلا نذير وبشير لقوم يؤمنون. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت وتولنا فيمن توليت وبارك لنا فيما أعطيت وقنا واصرف عنا برحمتك شر ما قضيت فإنك تقضي ولا يقضى عليك إنه لا يذل من واليت ولا يعز من عاديت تباركت ربنا وتعاليت فلك الحمد على ما قضيت ولك الشكر على ما أعطيت نستغفرك اللهم من جميع الذنوب والخطايا ونتوب إليك. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Rahim. I begin in the name of the God whose mercy is profound, whose kindness is forever. This being the 8th night of Ramadan, I will cover Surah Al-Iraf, which is the 7th surah of the Quran, one of the longest surahs of the Quran. This surah is the second surah of the second groups of Quranic surahs. The Quran has been divided, designed by the Almighty in a way that it has 7 surah groups. We've already covered the first one from Surah 1 to 5. The second group comprises of 4 surahs: Al-An'am, Al-Iraf, Al-Anfal, and At-Tawbah. This group of surahs describes the manner the Almighty enabled the Prophet, may Allah's mercy be on him, to accomplish his mission, call it his project, of ensuring that the message that was delivered to him be delivered to the people of his nation in such a clear and convincing way that there would remain no doubt in the minds of the people that it was from God. And after it's done through the prophets, through the messengers, then the people who still do not believe are declared by the Almighty as criminals and therefore worthy of punishment. And therefore, this punishment was inflicted on the people who rejected the last messenger. So, the 4 surahs of this group, Surah Al-An'am is the first surah, which is inviting people to have faith and is warning them of dire consequences if they are not going to believe. The next Surah Al-Iraf, which we are going to cover tonight, is the surah of warning and giving conclusive evidence to the people that this book and this message is from God. The next Surah Al-Anfal we'll do tomorrow, inshallah, is preparing believers for the ultimate punishment to be inflicted on the people who rejected faith. And Surah Tawbah is the surah of punishment, and therefore, not surprisingly, it's the only surah of the Quran which does not begin with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, because on the one hand, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim is mentioning the Almighty's attributes of mercy. On the other hand, the punishment of the Almighty is the subject matter of the surah. So the two were not consistent. This surah begins with Alif Lam Mim Sad. Many surahs of the Quran begin with what we call huruf muqatta'at. These are letters that are disjointed. They are not read in a way you normally read letters to form words. They are read separately. It was something that was known to the Arabs. The Arabs criticized many aspects of the teachings of Islam, but they never criticized this aspect of the Quranic presentation because they knew that it's a part of a good presentation that at times it be preceded by a few letters. These letters do certainly have meanings, and each of the letters that precede a particular surah, the meanings of those letters and the subject matter of the surah that succeeds, they have got a lot to do with each other. They are consistent. What exactly do these letters mean, and how are they relevant to the surahs that they precede is something that needs a lot more time to describe, which I do not have. But I'll just give you one brief example. Surah Al-Qalam is also known as Surah Noon. It is the 68th surah of the Quran. Noon is known to have the meanings of fish. It's a word used for fish, and it's used in the Quran for that purpose. And the surah, which is a relatively short surah, has the mention of fish in it. Wala takun kasahibil hut. O Prophet, don't be like the one who was swallowed by fish, Yunus alayhi salam. So the surah begins with Noon, whose meaning is fish, and the surah is talking about fish, which really means that all other surahs which are preceded by these letters, those letters have definite meanings, and those meanings have definite relationship with the contents of the surah. The first two verses of this surah, they say, Kitabun unzila ilayk. This is a book, O Prophet, which has been revealed to you. In other words, it's not something that you had desired for. People are criticizing you for presenting this book. It's not your desire. It was not your preparation that caused you to have this book. It was given to you by the Almighty as a responsibility. Fala yakun fi sadrika harajun. So do not have any distress therefrom in your heart. Litunzira bihi. This book has been revealed to you so that you warn people through it. Wa zikra lil mu'minin, and so that it should become a message that would remind the believers. All humans need to be reminded about the ultimate realities of life, about the presence of God, about life after death. So believers, when they forget, the book reminds them effectively. It goes on in verses 8 and 9 to describe an important principle that is going to be followed in the process of accountability on the Day of Judgment. The Quran says, Wal waznu yawma izinil haq. On that day, weight is going to be carried by genuine acts, genuine deeds. That is, when the accountability process is going to take place, the Almighty is going to look at the deeds of the people and decide as to what good deeds were genuine and which were the ones that were fake. فَمَنْ ثَقُلَتْ مَوَازِينُهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. Those whose deeds, that is good deeds, are going to be heavier, they are the ones who are going to be ultimately successful. And those people whose deeds, that is good, genuine deeds, are going to be found wanting, they are going to be punished. Many Muslims have a different view. They think that on the Day of Judgment, it's going to be a process whereby the good deeds are going to be weighed against the bad deeds. So if you have done many bad deeds, you've been telling lies, you have been committing frauds, you've been cheating people, causing harm to others. Some of them say that, no worries. Is it not that we fast, we say prayers, we do umrah, we make masajid, mosques, etc. So ultimately on the day of judgment, it's going to be good deeds against bad deeds. So our good deeds are going to be much heavier than the bad deeds. The Quran is telling us a completely different picture. Bad deeds have no role to play except to spoil your good deeds. Your good deeds are either genuine and therefore they will carry weight, or they are bogus, fake, and have no weight, will have no weight whatsoever. In order for our good deeds to have weight, to be genuine, they should be inspired by belief in God, or belief in life hereafter, or a genuine concern for fellow humans. And whenever we do anything bad, we should get rid of it by repenting to the Almighty and doing tawbah. It's only then that our good deeds would not be allowed to be destroyed and spoiled by bad deeds. So it's a struggle between the two kinds of deeds, and it's only genuinely good deeds that are going to count. After mentioning the story of Adam and Iblis, which is presented in 7 different passages of the Quran, probably in Surah Al-Iraf, the mention of this story is the longest. At the end of the story, the Almighty tells us that while on the one hand, Iblis was arrogant, and therefore the Almighty gave his verdict against him. Adam and Eve also committed a big sin, yet they were forgiven because they were not arrogant. They were humble and they sought forgiveness from the Almighty, and their prayer of repentance is mentioned in this particular surah, and it's a prayer which I'm sure most of us know, and we would always want to continue to repeat it. Rabbana zalamna anfusana. Oh our Lord, we have harmed our souls. That is, whenever we do something wrong, we actually cause harm to ourselves. وَإِلَّمْ تَغْفِرْ لَنَا وَتَرْحَمْنَا. If you are not going to forgive us and you are not going to have mercy on us, لَنَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. We most certainly are going to be the losers. Then we move on to another aspect of this story, which is mentioned in verse 26. This dua is mentioned in verse 23 of Surah Al-Iraf. No story in the Quran is mentioned for the sake of just describing a story. There is always a lesson to be drawn. In the story of Adam and Iblis that has been mentioned in this particular surah, the Almighty would want us to draw a lesson. And the Quran says, Ya Bani Adam, O children of Adam, Qad anzalna alaykum libasan. We have sent down upon you a garment. Yuwari sawatikum, it covers your privacy. Varisha, and it adorns you. You know, it makes you look good. Walibasut taqwa, and the garment of God consciousness. Zalika khair, that's even better. Zalika min ayatillahi, these are the verses and messages of God given to you la'allahum yazzakkarun, so that you and these people they contemplate. That is, the Almighty on the one hand would want you to appear good, but on the other hand would also want you to not get into ways that are obscene, which human nature, if it is in its good, pure form, abhors. Taking this topic even further, in verses 32 and 33, the Almighty is posing this question. Qul, ask them, Man harrama zinatallahi allati akhraja li'ibadihi. Who says that God has prohibited the beauties that He has created for His servants, وَالطَّيِّبَاتِ مِنَ الرِّزْقِ, and the good food provisions that He has given, He has created, He has made available for His servants. There are religious people who have a feeling that if you are leading a good life, you're enjoying it, you're looking good, it's not something which is desirable in religion. But this is not an Islamic approach. It is an approach of asceticism. God wants us to have a good life. Unless we have a good life, how can we thank God? So He wants us to have adornment, us to beautify ourselves. However, and He mentions that this is all for you, all these blessings are for you. If they are being provided to people who reject God, it's only because God wanted to give His believers these good provisions, and He also allowed others to join in. But after the day of judgment, they are going to be exclusively for the believers. And then he moves on in the next verse to clarify that it is not beauty, it's not good things in life that are prohibited. What is prohibited is, tell them, my Lord has prohibited only what is obscene, whether open or concealed, involvement in extramarital affairs, depriving others of their rights, unjustifiable oppression, and that you associate with God partners for which He hasn't sent down any authority, and that you say about God what you don't know. These are the list. This is the list. These are the items which are prohibited by the Almighty. Otherwise, He wants His servants to have a good life. Verses 40 and 42 are describing two very important principles regarding the trial of this life and the judgment on the day when all people are going to be held accountable. The first principle mentioned in verse 40 is, Innal lazina kazzabu bi ayatina wastakbaru anha. Indeed, those who deny our verses and are arrogant towards them, the gates of heaven will not be opened for them at all until a camel passes through the eye of a needle. In other words, they will never ever get the opportunity, privilege of entering the paradise. Who? Those who reject the Almighty's message arrogantly. If somebody has not as yet been able to understand His message, he is not at fault. Sooner or later he'll understand it. But the people who think that those people who are presenting God's message to them are lesser than them, and they feel big, they have a feeling about themselves that they are bigger and superior to others, that's what causes people to be not acceptable in the eyes of God. So that's one thing. The other thing that he mentions is verse 42 is, وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, those who believe and do good deeds. لَا نُكَلِّفُ نَفْسًا إِلَّا وُسْعَهَا. We will not make anyone accountable beyond his capacity. أُولَٰئِكَ أَصْحَابُ الْجَنَّةِ, such are the people who are going to be the inhabitants of the paradise, hum fiha khalidun, they're going to live therein forever. What it means is that the two criteria on the basis of which a decision is going to be taken, whether a person is going to be allowed to enter the paradise or not, are belief and good deeds. But how much belief and what level of good deeds? The Almighty clarifies, we expect people to perform according to their capacities. And what is the capacity of an individual? There are two things which define a capacity: your personality, your intelligence that the Almighty has endowed you with, and there are other aspects of your personality, the way you look at things, your psyche, etc. And the other thing is your environment, the place you are living in. So God is going to decide about each individual what exactly her capacity is. The minimum expectation is going to be defined. And then the person's performance regarding faith and good deeds is going to be looked at, and a decision is going to be taken as to who deserves to enter the paradise and who doesn't. You look at it and there can be no principle, criterion more fair and just than that. Unfortunately, because many religious people don't understand it, they present an understanding of religion which doesn't make sense, according to which if you are born in the right families, you will be eligible for the paradise. If there are some people who by God's decision are born in some other families, some other nations, etc., the poor people are not going to be given the chance of succeeding. God is fair, and He says that He's going to look at the performance on the basis of each person's potential. An interesting example of the coherence in Quranic passages is found in verses 57 onwards of Surah Al-Iraf. I mentioned earlier that the Quran is a coherent message. That is, it's not that the Quran makes its passages presented in a way that one story, one theme jumps to another without any link between the two. The fact of the matter is that all verses of the Quran are together coherently knit in a manner that they form a presentation which is absolutely consistent. We find verse 57 wherein the Almighty is saying, وَهُوَ الَّذِي يُرْسِلُ الرِّيَاحَ بُشْرًا بَيْنَ يَدَيْ رَحْمَتِهِ. And it is He who sends winds as good news before His mercy, rainfall. And then He causes clouds to go to the lands where the rain is to fall. And then what happens is, as a consequence of rainfall, we have crops, plants emerging. God says, likewise we will raise the dead. Like the dead land, dead soil is caused to come back to life through rainfall. Likewise, people who are dead and buried in their respective graves are going to come back to life on the day of judgment. The next verse says, and the good land, the fertile land, its vegetation emerges by the permission of its Lord. But that which is bad, that is the infertile soil, nothing emerges except what is useless, which has nothing useful for humans. And after this passage, after the mention of rainfall and the consequent happenings, the Quran starts talking about the stories of the messengers. And the reader is kind of disappointed. Why is it that there is a sudden shift without any link between the two passages? And we have a long passage from verse 59 to verse 137, wherein the stories of the famous 6 messengers who are quite often mentioned in the Quran, Nuh, Hud, Saleh, Lut, Shuaib, and Musa alayhimus salam. They are mentioned in the Quran in several surahs. Their stories are mentioned, but we don't understand why is it that preceding this description of the stories, there is this mention of rainfall. But a little deeper reflection would make an individual realize that what the Almighty is telling us is that, as is the case with rainfall and growth of plants and crops, similarly is the case with the message of God's messengers who bring wahi, divine revelation, which is a spiritual rainfall. So in the case of rainfall, even though rain falls on different soils, yet only some soils respond positively. Others are barren and infertile, and we get nothing out of them. Likewise, when the message of God comes to a certain nation, it all depends on the quality of your soul, your soil. If it's good, if you are a good human, you will respond positively, and let's say the plants of faith and good deeds are going to sprout, emerge from you. But if a person doesn't have a good soil inside him, it's a barren soil, nothing is going to happen. So what I'm trying to say is that an apparently incoherent two passages, if you reflect deeply, would turn out to be very strongly connected with each other. Verses 94 and 95, after describing 5 messengers' stories, it talks about the same principle that we have seen in the last surah, wherein the Almighty says that when He sends a messenger to a certain nation, it's not that they are destroyed immediately after they say no. In fact, God causes them to go through bad times in order for them to get an opportunity to humble themselves. And when they don't humble themselves, despite difficulties that they confront, then God allows them good times of prosperity, and as a consequence of them forgetting about the Almighty's expectations from them that were delivered to them through His messengers, they are ultimately caught, seized by God's punishment. Then we move on to verses 130 and 133. God mentions that the same policy which He has been following regarding all messengers was also followed regarding Pharaoh and his nation. In order for them to take the message that was brought to them by Musa alayhi salam, Moses, seriously, he required them to go through difficulties. So there were problems, call them punishments, like floods, locusts, lice, frogs, and blood, which visited them one after the other. One year they would find that there are lots of frogs everywhere. In another year they would find that there's blood all around, etc. The Quran only mentions the titles of these problems and mentions that these are ayatim mufassalat. These are verses that have been explained. Now the Quran doesn't mention anything else. Where have they been explained? And then we come to learn about the fact through reflection and reading that they have been explained in Torah, which was God's book. And we see even today that in the Old Testament, in the second book of the Old Testament, the book of Exodus, we have a detailed description of all these difficulties that the people of Pharaoh had to go through in chapters 8, 10, 12, and 15. Thereafter, we find that the Quran is mentioning about the fact that when Musa alayhi salam had the opportunity of communicating with God directly, he grew in confidence and asked God to be seen. He wanted to see God directly. And the Almighty told him that this is not possible. And if you want to know a little more about it, then you look at the mountain over there. And God, He appeared before the mountain. What does it mean? I don't know. But, He showed His glimpse to the mountain. And the mountain was, it fell flat. It disappeared. And Musa alayhi salam realized that it's not possible really, because he felt unconscious. And then when he gained consciousness, he said that, Subhanaka, you are free from all weaknesses, O God. Tubtu, I repent towards you. Wa ana awwalul mu'mineen, and I am the first to recognize, acknowledge that you cannot be seen. There is a very important passage towards the last part of this surah, verses 172 and 173, which tells us that we humans, before we came to this world, all of us experienced God spiritually. What was the occasion? How did it happen? We don't know. We don't even remember it. Now you might ask that if you don't remember it, how could it be even relevant? Well, the answer is that quite often it so happens that things have happened in the past which we don't remember, and yet there are certain signs, traces, which enable us to be reminded that indeed it happened. Sometimes we get injured, we have a bruise, injury while we are children, and then we forget. But there is some mark on our body, on our face, which reminds us that it actually happened. So we did meet God, and then we were sent to this world, and that memory of that meeting was erased. But within us, there are feelings, there are reasons. When we look at this world around us and we reflect upon the amazing world that He has created, we get the understanding that there is God present. And when one is able to realize that God is present, there are many people who get emotional. Why? Because God is already there inside us. We have the memory, we have the feeling, the traces of that meeting with us. That's what the Almighty mentions in this passage, and says that this we did so that tomorrow on the day of judgment, nobody can come to us and come with an excuse to say that, Oh God, what is our fault if we didn't believe in you? What is our fault if we were born to parents who ascribed partners with you? We didn't know about it. God says, that's not true. You know about it. You knew deep inside that you've met me and that your Creator is one. This is the mention in the Quran which actually leads us to the conclusion that belief in God and our attachment, contact with Him is not quite as much an intellectual issue. It is intellectual in nature as well, but more than that, it's a moral issue. Like we are morally obliged to be good to our parents, even more, we are morally obliged to be good to our Creator, who after all is the creator of our parents as well as everybody else. The last one passage that I've picked for the presentation tonight is verses 201 and 202. Towards the end of the surah, they say that Satan's influence on humans is undeniable. We all are humans. We all have our weaknesses, but there are two different types of people who are influenced by Satan. The Quran says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا إِذَا مَسَّهُمْ طَائِفٌ مِّنَ الشَّيْطَانِ تَذَكَّرُوا فَإِذَا هُمْ مُبْصِرُونَ. The God-fearing people are those when satanic impulse touches them, they remember God, and all of a sudden their hearts lighten up. That is, Satan tries to influence everyone. But the good people are the ones who, as soon as they realize there's something wrong going on inside them, and they are being enticed by Satan to go the wrong path, they remember God. And as soon as they do it, God helps comes to them. And, they come back to the good attitude. They lighten up, they are enlightened. But on the other hand, وَإِخْوَانُهُمْ يَمُدُّونَهُمْ فِي الْغَيِّ. The brothers of Satan, when they are approached by Satan and shown the evil way, they go far and deep into evil, and then Satan doesn't spare them. So in other words, this life of ours is a trial test all along. We have all been sent to this world with an enemy who is always threatening our journey towards the right path. Now, every now and then, we are threatened by the evil whisperings of Satan. But the God-conscious good people are those who, when they realize that they have been negatively influenced by Satan, they remember God, seek His forgiveness, and God helps them, and they come back to the good ways. But there are others who enjoy and like the evil whisperings of Satan, and therefore do not bother to remember God and to seek His forgiveness. And the end result is that Satan takes them away deep into the darkness of evil and misguidance, and they are the ones who are ultimately going to be unsuccessful in the next life. May the Almighty enable all of us to understand God's message properly and to be able to follow it as best as is possible. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم.